Chapter 55. When Harrison opened the door, there was no one in the cabin. His heart was already tight. In theory, William wouldn't dare to act rashly. Harrison stared at the dirty stain on the carpet and the large puddle in one corner, frowning. At this moment, someone on the side of the boat shouted loudly, "Third brother, here." He immediately ran up. Serafina was lying on her side in a puddle on the white painted deck. Her hair was loose, the deep red color of her dress was like a blooming rose. The red dress barely covered her chest, her white shoulders, arms, and long legs were all exposed. In the dark night, on the red dress, her body was so white that it hurt the eyes. He immediately ran to her side, only to see that in the cold night, her face was red. She closed her eyes tightly, her eyelashes were covered with rainwater, calm like a sleeping princess in the forest. He took off his windbreaker, preparing to wrap her up when she suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear as if they had just been washed by water, looking at him without blinking. He was stunned by her gaze, his heart also beat a few beats faster. Immediately after, she curled her lips, revealing a very small smile. "You're here?" His mind trembled slightly, for a moment he didn't know how to answer. He fumbled to tie the torn hem of her skirt, then wrapped her in the windbreaker and picked her up. He hurriedly walked, pressed his face against her rain-soaked face, and gently asked, "Are you cold?" She shook her head, clasped her hands around his neck, her lips slightly smiling, and whispered as if she was dreaming, "I just know, you will definitely come to save me." Her voice was weak, that unprecedented gentleness was like a soft finger touching his heart. However, he still discovered that her situation was not good. The person in her arms was even softer than before, like a stream of water, her jade arms tiredly wrapped around his neck, but it seemed like she was trying to squeeze him even tighter. He lowered his head to look at her. She had been soaked in the rain for so long, her whole body was cold as ice, only her cheekbones were still slightly pink. Her lips were also pale, with teeth marks, as if she was trying to endure a painful torture. His heart ached like it was being torn apart. He immediately hugged her tighter, quickly jumped off the boat and into the car, took dry clothes to change for her, and hugged her tightly. It was already dawn, the rain was still drizzling, the bridge was open, the police had set up a boundary line to clear the chaotic bridge, and were constantly checking the passing vehicles. The line of vehicles kept going for a while and then stopped. A feeling of anxiety rose in his heart. Not long after getting in the car, the coldness on her body had gradually dissipated, instead it became increasingly hot. For some reason, she was still shivering like that from beginning to end. He thought that now that the island was under curfew, there were police everywhere, so it was considered safe. He wanted to take her to the hospital, but she insisted on not agreeing, saying over and over again that she had to go home. He didn't know what had happened, nor did he know what was wrong with her. He only knew that after seeing him, she was like a child wrapped tightly around him, making him gradually exhausted to the point of being out of breath. But why couldn't he bear to remove her hand, only lowered his head, and asked softly, "What's wrong?" Before he could finish speaking, she looked up, her hot breath blowing on his face. A second later, she leaned closer, roughly trying to kiss him. He was stunned, supported her shoulders, and pulled her away from his lips. There was no doubt left, her aggressive and passionate kiss made his breathing chaotic. He lowered his head to glance at her legs and quickly looked away, but the visual impression was too deep, he couldn't shake it off. This was the girl he had always wanted. If he didn't react to her, he wouldn't be a man anymore. He was extremely embarrassed and shifted his position, restraining the emotions in his heart even though his throat was dry. He looked at her attentively, only to see her face pale and rosy from a fever in the morning sun, her eyes covered with thick mist, sucking people's souls away. He closed his eyes, trying to suppress his feeling of failure, and asked in a low voice, "Didn't they give you something to drink?" No, her voice was weak, confusion appeared in her eyes. "Why are you asking that?" He stopped talking. At first glance, she really had no problem. If she really took some kind of medicine, her reaction should be more intense. But why did she suddenly take the initiative like that? Before he could think of it, she continued to kiss him. Her lips were very soft and very light, touching his lips one by one, each time making his heart flutter. Her arms hugged his neck tightly, her body as hot as fire, also pressed closer. He hugged her slender waist. In the blink of an eye his spirit could not control itself and became chaotic again. There was no doubt anymore, he wanted her. On the bridge, at the moment he saw her fall with his own eyes, in his mind there were only two words: it's over. In the past 23 years, he had never experienced such a desperate and crisis-filled moment. He swore that he would definitely find her, he would definitely not give up. When she kissed him, he really couldn't control himself anymore. He had forgotten that she was sick, that she had a fever, that she was in a daze. Her mind was filled with only one thought. He longed to have her, right now. He fiercely kissed back, on her small earlobe, on her soft and slender neck. She trembled slightly in his arms. His kiss was hot as if mixed with fire, spreading densely across her face. She felt dizzy, unable to stop the trembling in her heart. This intense intimacy made her unable to resist. She tiredly let out a hum, only having the strength to gasp. She trembled, not knowing if he could dispel her fear of others, but she had no other choice. Her soft hands greedily caressed the lines of his chest through his shirt. This intimacy seemed to ease the tingling in the bottom of her heart. The fever in her body was getting higher and higher. Waves of heat continuously poured into her, as if she was being soaked in a hot water bath. Her head was also getting heavier and heavier. Her consciousness began to blur, but her emotions became more and more distinct. Some were very familiar, some were very strange. While his kisses continuously fell on her lips, her neck, besides the mint scent that belonged to him, there was also a strange taste that did not exist in him. His body was so warm that she did not know. In the end, it was a familiar contradiction or a strange safety. When a feeling of rejection was suppressed, another terrifying feeling was aroused. For a moment, she felt extremely sad. When she wanted to push him away, the conflicting emotions in her heart had completely worn away her will. The air became thinner and thinner. She could not breathe. In the end, she had no strength left. She immediately fainted. Her world went dark. When her consciousness returned, she felt the heat in her body had dissipated, and she felt extremely comfortable. She woke up because she heard a familiar voice. Wasn't it her beloved younger brother? No wonder she didn't stick around me this time when I went to Germany. It turns out she went to Macau to gamble. She's so grown up but still can't make others worry less. She opened her eyes and looked at Theodore. If you don't badmouth me for a while, you'll die? After she finished speaking, she looked over. Harrison was also sitting next to her. His forehead was marked with fatigue but still calm as usual. She remembered what the two of them did in the back seat of the car before she passed out, embarrassedly turned her face away, not looking at him. His expression was ambiguous. His eyes gently circled around her, properly asking, "Feeling a little better?" She lowered her eyes and nodded, finally adding a sentence, "The fever has gone down." Before she could finish speaking, Theodore tapped her forehead. Please take good care of yourself, don't involve me." Theodore held the thermometer in his mouth, looking at her very angrily. "Next time you're sick and don't tell me, don't blame me for beating you up." After speaking, he raised his fist, gesticulating as if he wanted to hit someone. She was stunned. Only now did she know that he was also sick because his soul was connected to hers. She immediately felt very comfortable, looking at his red cheeks, as cute as tomatoes. She couldn't help but laugh, and pinched his cheeks. "Wow, it's so hot, like a steamed bun." Theodore was irritated. One hand pulled out the thermometer, the other pulled her hand away. A second later, Dr. Mitchell's violence exploded on Theodore's head, fiddled around again. Theodore said, "Why don't you?" Dr. Mitchell stuffed the thermometer into his mouth again. "Shut up." Since Theodore was little, he had been Theodore's personal doctor, so he was very powerful. Theodore obediently held the thermometer in his mouth, glaring at Serafina with hatred. She stuck her tongue out at him, her spirits high. Harrison looked at her calmly beside her. When she was with Theodore she was both comfortable and at ease, showing a rare and strangely pure smile. Theodore sat in front of the hospital bed, holding a thermometer in his mouth, grumbling to Harrison, "Oh right, have you pursued the girl you like yet?" Harrison glanced at Serafina, then lowered his head and eyes, calmly saying, "Yes, I have pursued her." Serafina bit her lip gently. To be honest, she still hadn't thought of how to tell her brother about this. Theodore was very excited. The way I taught you is really useful. One day you bring her over for me to get to know. It's all thanks to me. Harrison nodded, saying deeply, it's really thanks to you. Serafina's hands were tightly clenched, not saying a word. So how far have you two come? Theodore was very excited, asking until the end, is it the first, third, or corner? The way of saying borrowed baseball terminology to refer to the level of intimacy between two people when they are in love. The first level is holding hands, the second level is kissing, the third level is going to bed. If they have done all of the above, it is called the corner. Harrison calmly scratched his nose, not saying anything. Actually, he also wanted to know this problem. The incident in the car that day had taken root in his heart. He often thought, if Serafina had not fainted at that time, would they have gone to that step? Mr. Harrison, you are so charming, that girl must have taken the initiative to approach and offer herself, right? Serafina blushed, it was really. It must be, did you too? Harrison coughed a few times. He was still calm, but Serafina couldn't take it anymore. She pulled him, Theodore, why are you? Theodore shook her hand away, men's business, why are you sticking your mouth into it, a woman like you? She fiercely pinched his cheek, you talk too much, be careful to bite the thermometer and break it, you'll die from mercury poisoning. Theodore frowned, is mercury as poisonous as you? She pursed her lips and gums, come here, my feet are itchy. Theodore immediately jumped up on guard, you still want to kick me? He had just gotten up when Dr. Mitchell pulled the thermometer out of his mouth and glanced at it, 39 degrees, go get in 4 right away. He walked out with a tired expression, but he didn't forget to glance at her resentfully, it's all your fault, I still have to attend the board meeting this afternoon. She was momentarily stunned, feeling that his silly appearance was not suitable for mentioning this serious topic. She wanted to say something but he had already disappeared outside the door of the hospital room. Wait a minute. She hurriedly put on her slippers and chased after him, but he was nowhere to be seen. When she found the 4 station, she saw that he had changed into a suit, the 4 tube was inserted into the back of his left hand. And his right hand was swiping on a piece of paper, discussing something with James Gray, the assistant his grandmother had recruited for him. This afternoon, the corporation had a board meeting, and Theodore wanted to attend. It looked like he had prepared very seriously. She couldn't help but be surprised. She thought he wouldn't go because he was sick, but she didn't expect him to be so focused. Different from his usual casual style, Theodore's way of dressing today was very mature, starting to look like a mature man. She tilted her head, absorbed in his unprecedented serious concentration. This was her younger brother, perhaps he would truly become her pride. She originally wanted to chase after him to say a few words, but now she didn't say anything. Tell him that Lily is a bad person and what she did to her. Without proof, it will only confuse him. Let him grow up obediently, as for Lily, she will deal with it. What happened that night made her determined, this time she must take the initiative. When she returned to the ward, Harrison was sitting there silently, eyes closed, a tired look on his handsome forehead. She had clearly left quietly, but he still felt it, slowly opened his eyes, his calm gaze fixed on her. Why are you looking at me like that? It's okay. He stood up, held her hand, his palm gently stroked her back, as if there was something on his mind, but after a while, he only uttered a very normal sentence, want some water? She nodded. He turned around to pour her some water. Just at this moment the ward door opened, Vivian walked in. Seeing Vivian, Serafina was stunned, but looking at her wearing a patient's gown, perhaps she was lucky to have escaped death. Serafina thought she came to find her, but Vivian only glanced at her indifferently, then looked at Harrison beside her. She twisted her hand, somewhat embarrassed, thank you for saving me. Harrison was pouring water, just glanced at her indifferently, then turned away and handed the glass of water to Serafina. She took the glass and drank obediently, but her curiosity had already risen. Vivian also realized that he didn't remember anything, her face flushed, and she slowly said, in Macau, you saved me from the sea, if it weren't for you, I would have died. He didn't pay any attention, honestly saying, "I left you on the beach, I don't know who saved you after that. But I know it was you." Vivian stubbornly and awkwardly said, her voice mumbling. Serafina heard it, but she didn't know if Harrison heard it or not. In the end, she raised the corner of her pale lips, "Anyway, thank you very much." He was still indifferent and didn't say anything. The hospital room was suddenly silent. Vivian stood there for a while, said another thank you, then left. Serafina asked curiously, "When did you become a hero saving a beauty? How come I don't know?" He wasn't worried at all, touched her head, and casually replied, "It's just a misunderstanding." As soon as he finished speaking, the phone rang. He still had a lot of things to do. Before leaving he told her a few things. She smiled and nodded, obediently like a little lucky cat. He felt his heart itch, but couldn't help but bite her lips a few times before leaving. But as soon as he left the hospital room, his heart felt heavy again. The scene behind the chair kept lingering in his mind for the past few days, unable to be dispelled. At that time, she was lying under him, warm as fire, soft as water. When everything was about to fall apart, her cheeks turned pale, her eyes were wild, tears were streaming down her hazy eyes. Every time he recalled that scene, his heart ached and his soul was broken. At that time, she had almost lost consciousness. A weak and desperate cry escaped her lips, "Please, don't."